Hello one, hello all, and welcome to the latest episode of the FigureFourcast. I am the Fig Show, Sam Gardner, and I'm joined by the man who's often found in the bus lane rather than the fast lane, Damien Cross. How are you doing today, Damien?
Wow, that's that's actually a genius insight. I can't even complain at that one. I'm doing pretty good. Obviously, we're approaching another pay-per-view, which is always an exciting time for wrestling fans. We've got a packed episode of the podcast this week as well. We've got a lot we've got to get through, so hopefully it should be a good one.
Yeah, sure. And the pay-per-view starts at 11 p.m. English time, UK time, GMT time, whatever you want to call it. So we're excited for that because we may actually be in bed by 2 o'clock rather than 4 o'clock. So let's jump right into the wrestling action anyway and go with it for Raw Day.
Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, so we had quite a good week of Raw, I think. There was definitely some negatives, but personally, I kind of enjoyed the show. I had a bit of a problem watching it on the first evening, Tuesday night. There was a bit of a problem with my Skybox, but I actually wanted to finish the show. Before we jump into the individual kind of segments, what did you think about the show overall?
I think overall it was enjoyable, actually. I tend to agree with you there. Like I say, there was a couple of ropey bits in there, but I think that the positives far outweighed the negatives on this Raw. And as a general, for Raw and SmackDown this week, we're getting to SmackDown later, but I think on a whole, it was a good week for WWE, and I enjoyed it all.
Yeah, the go-home shows to a pay-per-view normally have a bit of a bigger feel, but with it being kind of like a B pay-per-view, they didn't really have that dramatic feel they normally get. But there was still plenty to be excited about heading into Fastlane and just watching the shows in generally. I feel like one of the biggest talking points for us this week has got to be Shane versus Braun and their segments
Agreed.
on Raw. At the time of recording, we're still a little unsure about what's going to be happening at the pay-per-view because they were kind of setting up a match and then it didn't get advertised and now it is again. So we don't really know what's going on. But on Raw, Braun came out, challenged Shane to a match later in the night, and shenanigans kind of ensued when we got to that match. Shane is doing hopscotch. He's doing like some press-ups ringside, trying to like get into it, and then kind of like runs away before just laying out Braun, hitting him in the head with a camera, and then like elbow dropping him through the announce table. There is another bit, but I'll get to that in a second. And obviously this is kind of setting up them to have another match. But up until that bit, I was like, actually, there is something in this story to enjoy. Like, it's one of those weird stories. Like, I was trying to remember how this started. Like, it just feels like it came out of nowhere in my brain. Obviously, there was kind of a little bit of a build up to it, but it feels like last week it just like, well, we're going to pair them together. But there is a good possibility that whether it's Fastlane or WrestleMania, we could have a good moment. And I feel like that's what this is, a story that's building towards. It's not going to be building towards a great match. There's going to be one moment where Braun or Shane does something that you can talk about. And that's fine as a thing. The only thing I didn't really like because it wasn't meant to be for me to enjoy, I think it's for younger audience, is the weird moment when Shane covers Braun in green paint slime. I don't know what it's meant to be, but
Gunge.
Gunge, yeah, whatever. Like, it's obviously that's aimed at a younger audience.
Well, you'd like to hope that it was aimed at a younger audience.
I didn't hate it, but I was just kind of like, why are you doing this? Like, it doesn't need this.
Yeah, this whole feud sort of got to a point with me where it was so bad it almost brings me to tears thinking about it. But this week they sort of flipped the switch and now it's gone to the absolutely ridiculous point where it's kind of becoming good because it's so ridiculous. Hopscotch, who's done hopscotch in the last 20 years? I mean, I'm not I don't frequent primary schools, but I don't think I've seen anyone do hopscotch for a long time, let's just say. But hey ho, Shane McMahon can do it. Maybe he does that in his mansion. When Braun got clocked on the head by that camera, it looked like it absolutely twatted him on the head. It looked like, I think his head actually looked red as well, so I'm not sure if it did connect that first time or not. I'm going to actually say that I'm down for this feud now. I've completely switched gears and I enjoyed this.
But yeah, I'm interested in this story. I do want to see kind of what's going to happen, but that's because of it's kind of got that build to a oh my god moment. Like we've joked about Shane being fired out of a cannon. Obviously, I say obviously that's not going to happen, but presumably that's not going to happen.
You
but
never know.
Kind of get the feeling that something big is going to end this story. Yeah, as long as the match doesn't go on for ages, as long as it's like maybe a short 10 minutes segment with some thing, I feel like that'll be fine. It's when you dedicate too much time to this is when it starts being a problem. But I am weirdly entertained by it.
I don't think I can add anything else to that. I agree. It's got to the point now where it's enjoyable through being so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I'll take that.
Yeah. Shall we jump over and talk about another weirdly entertaining kind of storyline? The Randy Orton and Alexa Bliss storyline, which feels like we're getting somewhere. We might be getting to a new twist in the tale. For weeks they've been
Return of the Fiend.
Yeah, for weeks they've been not doing much rather than just kind of like the slight interaction, the black goo, the weird Randy Orton clone. But we're getting a match at Fastlane. Randy Orton versus Alexa Bliss. Which is almost certainly going to have shenanigans. It's not just going to be a match because WWE don't often do the intergender wrestling, and I don't feel like they're gonna do it here either.
I mean, imagine if we did just get the stereotypical Randy Orton match, 20-minute match, chin locks and stuff with Alexa Bliss. That'll be shit. I was gonna say that'd be okay actually. That'll be shit. I'm not gonna lie.
It would be terrible, but I'd be engrossed. You'd have to keep watching. You'd be waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
Obviously the segment this week was just kind of to set up that, and I think she says the only way for you to get me out of your life is to take me out. I've seen some people joking about why didn't you just take her on a date to a restaurant, but
yeah. And then down came Paddy McGuinness. Hello, single ladies.
Do you think presumably there's going to be some Fiend stuff, but we've been saying that every pay-per-view since the Fiend was burnt alive. Do you think we're going to see the Fiend at Fastlane, or
if they don't pay this off by bringing back the Fiend after a 6-month build, then I'm done. The Fiend's got to appear at the weekend, and that's obviously the way it's going to go. Spoiler for our predictions later in the show. Well, my predictions anyway. However, the best thing to come out of this segment was, on Twitter this week, I put up a poll, and it was 2 options. What's more likely to happen at Fastlane? The Fiend hits a sparkle splash, or Randy Orton RKO's himself? And the runaway winner, with I think over 75% of the votes, was Randy Orton RKOing himself. And everyone knows that WWE listen to this podcast. So do the right thing, WWE, and give the people what they want. Give Randy Orton RKOing himself to the people.
I do just want to check, when you say Randy Orton RKOing himself, is it a like cinematic style where there's 2 Randy Ortons, or does he just jump into the air and like fall face first?
That's not my problem. WWE can figure that out. I just want Randy Orton RKOing himself.
Okay. I mean, either would be entertaining. I feel like if it's just one Randy Orton and he just kind of like grabs himself around the neck and falls to the floor, it would be too stupid. But I feel like we'd be entertained. So
I'll take either one. Just give it to the people, WWE. The people have spoken.
Yeah. Hopefully next week we can be talking about this in a really positive light about some really interesting stuff, setting up a WrestleMania match. But as it stands at the minute, it's just kind of a little bit of story each week. There's not a lot really to talk about. It's just kind of a gradual build over a few months now. I can't remember when The Fiend was burnt alive.
6 months.
It's been 6 months.
Oh, well, it was December. It was December that The Fiend was burned alive, but there was a feud before that.
Yeah.
And it's been the best part of 6 months coming up to WrestleMania that they've been feuding.
Yeah, hopefully there is a good payoff to this. I'd be really disappointed if there's...
It bloody better be.
I'm
It
hoping
fucking better be.
I'm hoping The Fiend comes out with a slightly new look, a little bit of that kind of, he's been burnt alive, he should come back looking somewhat different, maybe like increase that kind of fear factor you have in The Fiend,
Yeah.
but hopefully we'll find out on Sunday. There's a few other big segments on Raw, but one kind of felt a little out of place, not in a bad way to me, but just that I wasn't kind of expecting it to go down how it was the Raw tag team scene. I felt like this was a bit more of a pay-per-view style thing. Obviously, the New Day came out to face Cedric Alexander and
Shelton Benjamin.
Couldn't remember his name. I was thinking MVP, and I was like, no, there's another member of the Hurt Business. Couldn't remember Shelton Benjamin. Sorry, Shelton Benjamin. So they came out to face him, and the New Day had Mortal Kombat inspired gear, and normally you save your fancy gear for like a pay-per-view or a big moment. So kind of to me that gave away that they were kind of winning here. It was a pretty good match. It was quite enjoyable. It definitely had a feel a bit more of like a pay-per-view match than a Raw match, because it didn't have a distraction or a roll-up. Some good spots as well, showing why tag team wrestling can be a highlight of a show it's on, which was unusual because WWE doesn't like tag team wrestling normally. But a good match, and then a change of the champions, and the New Day picking up the win, becoming the 11-time tag team champions.
Something like that, yeah, something like that. It's a bit of a shame for me to see that Cedric and Shelton lost the belts, but at the same time, I'm never going to complain with the New Day winning the belts because they're so good. I'd probably say they're the best tag team act in WWE and have been for a number of years now. I think the main story came after the match anyway.
Yeah.
When AJ Styles and Omos came out to challenge them for the tag team championships, which to me was a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting. There's been a talk for a few weeks kind of on the internet about this AJ Styles versus Triple H match potentially happening at WrestleMania. Although we'd seen no build towards it at all, people seemed sure this was going to happen. Obviously, there's kind of cemented that isn't happening because Triple H isn't a tag team champion. But it was a weird segment, but hopefully it can deliver at WrestleMania. We've not seen Omos wrestle.
No, we haven't seen Omos wrestle. And it's been an interesting year for him, hasn't it? He started off as a giant ninja for Akira Tozawa, and then he was a doorman for Shane McMahon, and now, all within a space of a year, he's making his debut at WrestleMania.
With a match involving AJ Styles, Xavier Woods, and Kofi Kingston, I feel like even if he's not the best wrestler, in case he isn't, I feel like the match can still be great because those other three are so talented.
I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that it'll be a good match. Like you said, you've got AJ, Kofi, and Woods in there. Three of probably the most experienced people in WWE and top performers. Woods is going to be throwing himself all across the ring for Omos, and so is Kofi, making him look a giant. And we were speaking about AJ for quite a few weeks, about him being built strongly. Yeah. I can't remember last time he's lost, and he's always coming over clean, winning. We were expecting sort of a big match for him. This, I guess, is a big match. It's a title match, something different for him. It's not what we expected would happen, but I like it, and I'm looking forward to it. Let's move away from the tag team division anyway, and go over to the main event. Do you want to talk us through what happened with the whole WWE title picture?
Yeah, so it was a weird story this week for it, and I'm not sure whether it was good or bad. I feel like there's arguments for both on this one, but the show started with the announcement that Bobby Lashley versus Drew McIntyre was happening at WrestleMania. Then Bobby Lashley came out, was interrupted by The Miz, who was then interrupted by Drew McIntyre in like a long drawn out promo to set up a match between Drew and The Miz to start the show, and then also set up a Sheamus versus Bobby Lashley match to end the show. And we've also got the confirmation that we're getting Drew versus Sheamus at Fastlane. And it was just kind of a lot happening with these 4 guys. There was more that happened with The Miz. Just to quickly explain that The Miz is not in this story anymore. After his match, he's now been thrust into that story with Bad Bunny. This whole segment, there was just a lot going on. It felt like we got like 2 weeks or maybe even 3 weeks of story development in one show. I don't like the fact they just announced the WrestleMania match. I think I said it last week. It would have been a lot better if they said like whoever wins between Sheamus and Drew gets a title shot at WrestleMania. Whether Sheamus deserves it after I think he lost the first match and then they drew the second one is not important. But I feel like that would have been the better story. So overall, I was left a bit confused by kind of the story we got. But each individual segment was positive for me. Drew looked dominant against The Miz. Lashley and Sheamus had a good hard-hitting match to end the show, both of which were positive. And the 2 matches that got announced, even though I don't like how they got announced, we're getting a no-holds-barred match between Drew and Sheamus, which should be an entertaining bout. And then we're getting a Drew Bobby at WrestleMania, which is what we've been wanting for a little while. So
completely agree with everything you say there. But what we did get was okay. In terms of the matches and everything, I like the Bobby and Sheamus match. Sheamus versus Drew at Fastlane will be good. I don't really have anything else to add, to be honest with you. Miz has gone into that Bad Bunny story like we expected, so that would be pretty good for Mania. Presumably it's going to be a tag match with Damian Priest and Bad Bunny against Morrison and Miz. But the highlight for this whole sort of main event picture for me this week had to be John Morrison's hair. It was freaking awesome. He looked insane. He looked like the lead of an 80s sort of cheesy, maybe like Baywatch or something like that. He looked freaking awesome.
There was certainly entertaining. The highlight for me on the feud, although the whole thing was great, was actually Sheamus's Twitter story with Drew. Obviously, I've been a little bit more invested in Sheamus's Twitter activity this week because somebody, Sam, decided to call him out on my behalf. But
well, anyone that listened to the podcast last week knows that you called him out. And there's still silence. It's been 7 whole days now of silence from Sheamus ducking Big Daddy Cross for a match.
Because of that, I've been following Sheamus's Twitter, not to see if he's responded, because I don't actually expect him, more to see if he's blocked us for you being annoying. But there was some entertainment stuff. The tweet in question has been the Twitter kind of mini feud they've had has been about the poster for Fastlane, and that it has Drew kind of in the forefront and Sheamus, in his own words, hidden just over Golden Boy Drew McIntyre's left shoulder in the background near some mountains. I swear I'm there. But a reason I liked it is because after some Photoshop humour, he calls Drew McIntyre Haggis Head. And you know what? I kind of wish he'd said that on Raw, like calling him Haggis Head is cool. Yeah, they've just had a little bit of back and forth on Twitter this week. It's been kind of entertaining. You kind of got to like the social media interaction when it's done well. It kind of add to it, and they're getting to play up their humour. And Drew McIntyre also dropped an F-bomb on Raw Talk.
I did see that, and well done to R-Truth for pulling that back.
Getting too caught up in the moment, but it kind of makes you gotta appreciate these guys, even if actually I'm not gonna criticise them again, not after last week. Shall we just move on?
Let's move on for your sake, because I don't want you to have a boot print in your face. But I think we've pretty much summed up Raw there. Would you agree?
Yeah, there's a few other little bits, but we've got a busy show, so we'll have to put them on the back burners and talk about them when they develop a bit further.
So a watchable Raw, an enjoyable Raw. Maybe not quite enjoyable, but I'll say watchable, so well done, W3. Let's move over to the better show.
Friday Night SmackDown.
And I've got a question for you, Damien. Were you ready for a good time before SmackDown?
I didn't know what to kind of expect. Actually, when I started watching it, I realised I was watching the wrong episode of SmackDown and got all the way through Edge's promo from last week before I was like, hang on a minute. I remember this, and
I've seen this,
and I had to rewatch it. I think I thought it was going to be a good show.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this SmackDown. I really, really enjoyed it, and I thought it was excellent. So, well done, WWE. You started my Saturday morning off to a good start. And I want to start with something that made me laugh out loud. My hole made me laugh out loud, but that was unintentional. This was intentional WWE humour that made me laugh, and that was the promo package to the Sami Zayn against Baron Corbin match. The bit that made me laugh the most was that they billed it as the least anticipated match in SmackDown history.
Yeah, this had me cracking up. I really hope they upload this promo package to YouTube so that other people can go and check it out if they haven't. I don't know if it's there yet at the minute. Obviously, I've only just finished watching the show, but I would recommend searching out this promo package because it was intentionally funny and actually funny, and it's not often you can say that with WWE. But I immediately started laughing like when they were doing. I kind of thought I'd misheard what was said, and I was like, "Oh, hang on a minute!" Like,
Yeah. It was so good, man. It was so good. I couldn't believe it. And if we actually talk about the story development as well, Kevin Owens was with Sami Zayn earlier in the show. Sami Zayn was going, so you're going to join me sort of in this crusade that I've got against the man, if you want, man, WWE, the powers to be, whoever. And Kevin Owens was sort of questioning Sami Zayn and his sanity, I guess, if you want, saying, I think it's just you going a bit nuts, to be honest, Sami. So Sami said, well, come out to ringside and you'll see all of the corruption against me. The corruption that did happen, if you want, in inverted commas, was all Sami Zayn's sort of, he built it to himself to do with the referee. He poked Baron Corbin in the eye and put his feet on the ropes and stuff like that. After the match, anyway, was the important bit. Sami went over to Kevin after he lost the match and said, did you see all this corruption against me? Did you see all this corruption? Kevin Owens pretty much say, no, man, you're deluded. It was all your own doing and stuff like that. Kevin Owens would turn away to talk to Michael Cole, and bam! A Luva kick straight into Kevin Owens' face, and it popped me big time. Yes, if this leads to a match at WrestleMania between Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, get in there. This will be awesome.
Yeah, I kept thinking like, he's gonna kick him, and then they kind of hesitated a little bit. And I was like, are they not going to do this? But Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens have great chemistry together. They've been friends for a long time. They've wrestled a lot, both on the independent scene, NXT, and on WWE. But they're always a highlight together. They know each other so well. You always get some entertainment from it. So I think this is a good story. It gives Kevin Owens something to do in the build-up to WrestleMania because he didn't really have a story since losing to Roman Reigns. And I just kind of liked Kevin Owens' kind of straight man kind of persona about everything. Like when they were backstage and he was saying like they've been out to get me, and Kevin Owens is like, who are they? Just tell me who they are. And
yeah,
like that was kind of, it's playing up to this whole conspiracy theory, the Sami Zayn character with just someone being like you're not making any sense because there's a logical explanation for things. And I think he says on commentary that it's some of the best officiating he's seen from a referee. But you can't always say that, and he did it, he got everything right, and then Sammy's like, "Wow, can you believe that? He did his job, for real." But yeah, it was a great segment, and it wasn't something I was expecting from a Sami Zayn, Baron Corbin kind of.
But it's all good stuff, and if that match is on WrestleMania, it's something else to look forward to, and I am definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, what you want from a segment.
Yeah, exactly. Let's move on from this sort of feud between Zayn and Owens, this newly born feud, and go over to a feud that's been going on for a little while now, bubbling along under the surface, between Big E and Apollo Crews. There was a sit-down segment between them both where Michael Cole would just sort of ask some generic questions to them, and you could sort of see the tempers bubbling up in both guys, but particularly Big E. Apollo would sort of taunt Big E in a way, and it would get to the point where Big E would get so angry that he rips his mic off, finds a golf cart with a cameraman clinging onto the back, presumably, from the shot that they did, and he would go across the stadium that the Thunderdome's in. I can't remember it off the top of my head. Tropicana Field, that's it, Tropicana Field. He'd go across the stadium in his golf cart shouting, "Apollo, Apollo, I'm coming for you," which made me laugh as well. He'd eventually see Apollo. Apollo would try and run, but Big E would catch up with him and unleash a brutal attack on him. This is the sort of stuff that we want to see, that I want to see at least. Big E looking strong, awesome, dominant, everything that people have been complaining about him being too goofy. He looked a serious character. It didn't sort of do anything bad against Apollo. Apollo still looked serious, and it's all good stuff. And I'm really, really looking forward to the match now at Fastlane.
Yeah, we've been enjoying this feud for a number of weeks, and this was just a further step in the right direction for this feud for me. Still not sure about the way that both of them are delivering their promos. It still say like Apollo's accent sounds so out of place to me still, because obviously we've been so used to how he talked previously that it kind of makes his accent sound almost like a distraction. Like it's kind of like you tend to focus on it, but over the coming weeks, I'm sure we'll begin to forget about that. And Big E's promo delivery style has changed as well to be this more intense. And again, that feels a little weird. It's just because it's new. It's not bad. It's just it's new. It's different, and that can come across as a bit alarming, a bit strange. But again, it's one of those things where we have been enjoying this, and this was just more of what we've been enjoying from them. And thinking, I don't think it's going to be match of the night, because there's a lot of good matches, surprisingly, for Fastlane. But I think it can be a really entertaining match that we get.
Yeah, I agree. It's one that I'm definitely looking forward to, and up there with the Reigns against Bryan match, which we'll discuss in a little while. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it for Fastlane. Another point this week on SmackDown that I wanted to talk about was the tag team division, and there was some really good development in there for me this week. It will start off with the Dirty Dogs on commentary for a match between the Street Profits and the Mysterios. It was a good back-to-forth match, and the Mysterios would end up winning it with Dominic scoring a roll-up, I believe, on Angelo Dawkins. Shock victory, but the Mysterios get a win and have sort of kind of a right to a number one contendership match. Street Profits arguably already had that right to a number one contendership match because they're potentially one of the top tag teams in the division. It would go straight into Chad Gable coming out and saying to the Mysterios, "Oh, you think that win was something special?" Blah blah blah. Taunted them into a match, and the Alpha Academy would end up having a match against Mysterios, and Otis looked dominant. Otis looked really strong, and they've sort of gone full on heel now. It seems sort of no in between with Otis now. He's just a heel, big dude, and he'd end up scoring the win against the Mysterios. And it seems to me that we're going towards a multi-man match at WrestleMania for the championships. Potentially throw the Usos in there if Jimmy's back from injury and do another ladder match. I think it would be cool at WrestleMania. And I just wanted to say, actually, that I thought Dolph Ziggler was really, really good on commentary this week. Sort of added a flair in there that some wrestlers coming down from and sitting with the commentators don't often have. He sort of added something to the commentary.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. Both matches were very entertaining, and just by themselves would be talked about in a positive way. So as a whole segment, it definitely strengthened kind of the SmackDown tag division, which is definitely the stronger of the two at the minute. The potential for a multi-man match at WrestleMania, I think a fatal four-way style tag match could be amazing. I wouldn't want to see the Usos involved, although they're tremendously talented tag team wrestlers. I feel like they've got kind of their own story that's going to be developing, so I wouldn't want to kind of muddy the waters with that. But other than that, I think it'd be great. And I've been a fan of Dolph Ziggler for pretty much his entire career, or at least his entire career as Dolph Ziggler. The less said about the Spirit Squad, the better.
They're in my Hall of Fame picks for the tag team.
He's one of the best kind of across the board in a lot of stuff he does. Like he's great on the mic when given the right stuff to talk about. Great at selling, and is a great just in-ring performer generally. I don't think he's quite given the respect he deserves sometimes. Yeah, he was great on commentary, and even their little jokiness with, I can't remember who said it on the commentary team, but got their name wrong, called them the Top Dogs instead of the Dirty Dogs, and even like little things like that.
Michael Cole.
Yeah, I'm hoping this will be a good segment at WrestleMania. It might be a pre-show. We might get the main card. We just have to see how the story develops. But a Fatal 4-Way could be something to talk about.
Yeah.
It could be some good spots, some good segments. I wouldn't be opposed, even if it was on the pre-show, but I wouldn't be opposed to like an elimination style match. So 4 teams, the last team standing kind of elimination match. That could be pretty entertaining. In fact, I want it. WWE, give me a four-way tag match with elimination rules. That's what I want.
Yeah, I'd take that. I'd absolutely take that. And this tag division, as well as the development with Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and a couple of other things that happened on the show, have made me much higher on WrestleMania this year than I was coming into the show. I was sort of a bit undecided on it. It kind of didn't really feel like WrestleMania season, but a lot of the developments on this show actually really got me excited for this year's WrestleMania. And that brings us nicely into the main event picture between Roman Reigns, Daniel Bryan, and Edge. I would quickly just go over, as expected, Edge won the match to become the enforcer at Fastlane against Jey Uso. That was kind of expected. It was a pretty good match, and throughout the night, they showed sort of clips of Edge's best moments on SmackDown because it was his first match in over 10 years, I believe. I think it was actually 11 years that he competed on SmackDown. But yeah, it was a pretty decent match, what you'd expect between Edge and Jey Uso. You're not really going to get a bad match between those two. Edge would come out victorious, and afterwards, after the match, I think Daniel Bryan was on commentary.
Yeah.
Roman Reigns would spear Edge out of his shoes and say to Daniel Bryan, come in here and tap me out there. You've been saying all night that you could tap me out. Come in here and tap me out. So Daniel Bryan gets up, goes to get in the ring, and gets blindsided by Jey Uso, gets rolled into the ring, and then he gets speared out of his shoes. It was all good stuff leading into the match at Fastlane, and yeah, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it makes you question what's going to happen at Fastlane because there is a trend in WWE of whoever stands tall on the go-home show doesn't win. And that is a long-running trend. You see it a lot with like Royal Rumble and Money in the Bank. They'll have someone that looks like to be dominant and then they're not going to win. And you do often see it with Championship. Normally on the go-home show, they'll have they'll do like a neither man looking tall or the person that's going to lose getting the upper hand so that they don't look weak 2 nights in a row. So it does kind of give you a question for their match at Fastlane, which is obviously a good thing. You want to be unsure about who's going to win. You don't want to go into a pay-per-view match being like, well, obviously this is going to happen. Still kind of wish it was a special guest referee rather than special guest enforcer. I kind of liked like the whole thing. They built up like Edge's biggest moments. Don't know if I would say they were his best moments because one of them was his retirement speech, but his like biggest moments on SmackDown in little packages, and kind of the match was pretty good. Some good storytelling in it with kind of them trying to weaken each other down. I'm expecting good things from the match on Sunday, and I'm still hoping we get that triple threat at Mania.
Yeah, I'd completely agree with everything you just said there, and it sort of brings an air of anything can happen at Fastlane. There's so many different things that can happen in that main event, and pretty much all of them will be good, apart from Daniel Bryan not being involved in the main event now. I just really want him to be there.
Yeah.
I can't see it. If he's not involved in the main event, I can't see him fit in anywhere else in the card on WrestleMania. So everything's pointing towards Bryan being there.
Unless of course he just had something with Jey Uso, but that would be a bit of a letdown.
Yeah, that would feel like a bit of a anticlimax. But there was a couple of other things to happen on SmackDown. Obviously, the women's division. It was just more of the same, to be honest. Nothing really of note happened. Sasha Banks defended her title against Nia Jax. There was sort of shenanigans in there involving Shayna Baszler. The less said about it, the better for me. I just really want this all to be over after Fastlane and just get into Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks.
The women's tag team champions, Shayna and Nia, have had a story that's been going over both shows for a number of weeks, and we didn't really talk about it with Raw. We saw Asuka come back and just like beat down on Shayna Baszler on Raw. They then set it up with this kind of little disagreement between Nia and Shayna. I don't know if I don't think they're going to do this, but I really want now, because based on this, for it's going to be bad for one of the matches anyway. But I kind of want to see Nia and Shayna split up so that we can get Shayna versus Asuka in like a good match at Mania. I feel that might be a potential route they go because it was meant to be Charlotte Flair and she was nowhere to be seen on Raw. But that would involve presumably something happening at Fastlane with the tag team titles against Sasha and Bianca, and I don't want to see them win the championship. So this whole story is a bit hard to kind of know where to stand on it because it's still really difficult to figure out what they're going to do. But hopefully when things start to become clearer, we can look back on what's been happening and be like, oh, actually it was good. We just had to get through all the weirdness to get to the other side. So at the minute, it is a big down kind of on the division. Across both brands, they're just kind of lost at the minute. But hopefully, all the pieces can fall into the right place and we can have some great stories coming forward. But that's kind of the only thing I would say about it is they just don't seem to know what to do. And I think the Raw side is what's doing that and then leading it into the SmackDown side because obviously we had Lacey Evans was meant to be in the picture. Then she's got pregnant, is now obviously can't wrestle. Then it was meant to be Charlotte Flair, and I don't know if it is related to outside stuff, but obviously there was this whole thing with Andrade, her fiance, I want to say. I think they got engaged when his release, and I don't know if that's played into a part, but there was no Charlotte Flair on Raw. Like, what's the story kind of thing? I think that's kind of what's happening is they don't know what to do on one brand, and that's affecting the other. Because obviously this week, we had a great AEW women's match. I don't want to talk about it too much because we do have a lot to talk about, but I've seen a lot of stuff on Twitter that they really kind of brought the house down with a
hard-hitting
match. The main event of Dynamite,
it was the main event of Dynamite, yeah. My favourite match of the year so far. It was incredible. Britt Baker, Thunder Rosa, incredible.
I'm not normally a big fan of matches involving thumbtacks. I'm a bit squeamish that way, but from the bits of it I saw, it was a highlight, and hopefully WWE can not necessarily match it in terms of like having a violent match because WWE try to stay away from that a little bit, but just in like the quality of their division, like there's a lot of talented female wrestlers. Give them something good to do, WWE.
I'd completely agree. And the SmackDown Women's division was so good for so long with Bayley and Sasha for all of last year. So let's get back to the heights of that. Sort the Raw Women's division out again. It's not like you're short of talent. So I completely agree with your sentiments there. Right, I think that's pretty much the roundup of the weekly television done now. So let's move on to a little bit of fun.
The big question.
So the big question this week is all to do with the FigureFourcast Hall of Fame and who we'd put into our own personal Hall of Fames. We've had a little bit of help this week from some of our friends at fellow podcasts about wrestling. I'd like to thank the Damn It Vince podcast and the Wrestle Things podcast. And we're going to start off with their picks, who they'd put in the Hall of Fame. Starting off with Wrestling Things picks. So here you go.
What's happening, people? It's your boy Delboy here from the Wrestling's podcast. Big shouts to our guys over at FigureFourcast. And if I was to induct anyone into the WWE Hall of Fame, it would 100% be Bam Bam Bigelow. I think it's an absolute outrage. It's an absolute... the audacity to the fact that he hasn't been nominated yet. It's absolutely crazy. I feel like he's someone that's definitely been a pioneer in terms of like the agile big man style. You know, as much as his WWE run wasn't necessarily the greatest, but his WCW run was mental, you know, and just overall his wrestling career has been crazy. So, you know, from his run in New Japan, ECW, WWE, WCW, like he's been an absolute workhorse, and he's just someone that I think definitely deserves to be given his flowers. So yeah, 100% Bam Bam Bigelow.
So Bam Bam Bigelow is an interesting pick, and I tend to agree that he's been very, very overlooked, and it sort of surprised me that he wasn't in the Hall of Fame already. He's sort of one of those names that you kind of expect to already be in the Hall of Fame, so for him to not be in there is a huge surprise to me. And I'd say, yeah, get him in there ASAP.
Yeah, it's not someone I immediately jumped to my mind, but yeah, he was tremendously talented. So why he's not in there, who knows? But yeah, I reckon he's a
This is
fair pick.
WWE after all. So throwing it over to our friends at the Damn It Vince podcast, here's what they think.
Hello, it's Butch from Damn It Vince here, Damn It Vince Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And we want to ask you, what about one of the most creative minds of the Attitude Era, one of the most underrated on the mic and in the ring, the 27 times hardcore champion and originator of the comic book ring gear before it was cool? We're asking, what about me? What about Raven?
So Raven is another excellent pick for the Hall of Fame. He's a hardcore legend, if you want to call him that, and he's been in so many hard-hitting, awesome matches over the year. He's another one that should absolutely be in the Hall of Fame, and I know he's sort of a cult hero for a lot of people. I remember his run in TNA, sort of in the early to mid 2000s, and he was even good then. So get him in WWE, get him in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he's not someone that I'm too familiar with. A lot of his stuff was outside of the time I was watching wrestling, but he has made numerous lists and videos that lots of people have uploaded to like YouTube and stuff that I've watched as well. So I'm a little bit familiar with some of his kind of storylines and stuff like that, and another deserving member of a Hall of Fame induction.
So thanks to our friends at the Damn It Vince podcast and the Wrestle Things podcast, two really, really good podcasts and content creators. If you don't follow them already, follow them and listen to what they do. Good stuff. Get on it. But moving over to our Hall of Fame picks now, we've got 5 categories that we're going to do. We're going to have a headliner, a men's pick, a women's pick, a tag team, and a non-wrestler.
Just before we start, for the FigureFourcast Hall of Fame, I just want to give a brief rundown of what we've kind of discussed. These are going to be wrestlers that were important to us, kind of, and what we know about wrestling. There will be lots kind of before we watched that maybe more deserving, but this will be people that are kind of our personal Hall of Famers that were very important for our wrestling kind of history. And they don't need to not be in the WWE Hall of Fame. This is kind of like a separate thing. So they already are a Hall of Famer, they would still be available to kind of pick. And we would like to know, if you're listening to this, what your opinions are and who you'd put in. So we'll leave our social media at the end of the podcast, and then we'd like to hear from you if you have any additional picks you'd like to put in.
My first pick for the FigureFourcast Hall of Fame is Rob Van Dam, RVD. He is someone that I loved when I was growing up. He's one of those guys that could just do everything. He was pretty good on the mic. He was sort of a cross between a high flyer and sort of not a technical wrestler, but just someone that's good in the ring. And he was someone that I just absolutely loved. I loved his when he won the WWE title and the ECW title at the same time, and he was a main eventer. He was in tag teams. He literally did it all from ECW, WWE. I think he's in Impact now as well. So him going into the WWE Hall of Fame, it might not happen until he leaves Impact, but he's someone that I loved, and I would put him in my Hall of Fame.
So Rob Van Dam is a great pick. Not someone I've put down. He didn't really crossed my mind immediately, but he is well deserved of a Hall of Fame entrant. But interestingly, my pick for the men's also does share a similar move. I have picked Eddie Guerrero. Now, I was back and forth about whether to put him as my headline pick or my men's pick, but I'm picking him as my men's pick, and obviously he was very good wrestler both before I started watching wrestling and like when some of the early wrestling memories I have involve watching Eddie Guerrero wrestle. Tragically taken from us way too early, but he's who I'd put in. His matches kind of like feuded Kurt Angle, Rey Mysterio, and Batista are some highlights for me of the early days of me watching wrestling. Obviously, he had some tremendous stuff before that, but those were kind of big moments. And of course, beating Brock Lesnar for the WWE title is such a feel good moment. I didn't watch it live, but going back and watching it, he was great. So he's my pick.
That's a fantastic pick. Can't argue with that at all. He's obviously already been honoured by the WWE Hall of Fame, and now he's been honoured by the FigureFourcast Hall of Fame. What I've done is sort of think of people that sort of haven't been honoured by WWE so far, but were sort of a big part of my wrestling experience growing up. So let's move over to the women's side of the FigureFourcast Hall of Fame.
I think potentially all of my picks may have been honoured by WWE already, having looked down them.
That's fine.
But
That's cool. So my women's pick, I was thinking, who was sort of a massive star back then and didn't necessarily get the recognition that she perhaps deserved? This woman wasn't the best wrestler. She was probably an awful wrestler, actually, in the nicest possible way. But she was a huge star and a huge draw. And the woman that I'm going to pick is Sable.
okay,
And Sable was involved in some huge storylines with Vince McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, and I think she's married to Brock Lesnar in real life now. But I just remember her being sort of a prominent figure of me growing up, watching wrestling when I was younger. And she is my pick.
for making women's wrestling good, because when we started watching, we would have started watching during the Divas days, where
Yeah.
you're more likely to see an evening gown match than a good match.
An actual wrestling match, yeah.
And although I'm sure we were entertained by it back in the day, you kind of look on it now that it wasn't the best. I think a big part of it came about in the last 5-6 years. We've seen women's wrestling in WWE actually get the showing it deserves, and I feel like a big part of that was Paige. So I'm going to pick
Okay, that's
her
interesting.
as my pick. She wasn't the only one. There was a lot that were in there, but I feel like most of the others are still active. And unfortunately, Paige suffered her neck injury and isn't able to wrestle. So I kind of wanted to pick wrestlers and things like that who aren't currently active. So I'm gonna pick Paige, because she deserves the recognition for kind of helping WWE with their women's division. Some of her stuff with AJ Lee and with kind of like the Four Horsemen of women's wrestling in WWE were amazing moments, and that is something that deserves to be recognised.
That's a great pick again, and I'm glad you mentioned AJ Lee, because she goes hand in hand with Paige, I think. Her, sort of Caitlyn, it's sort of kind of the generation before Paige came in. I think they were the guys or the girls, if you want, that kind of kick-started the early seeds of the women's evolution/revolution. So, yeah, Paige, can't argue with that. Great wrestler, and it's just a shame her career was cut short. Let's move on to the next class, or the next wing of our Hall of Fame, and it's the tag teams. The tag team that I have picked, both of the wrestlers are still active in different companies, one in WWE and one in AEW. They, along with Edge and Christian and the Dudley Boys, sort of innovated the extreme matches, the ladder matches. You've got a smirk on your face. I think you know who they are. You maybe pick them as well. It's the Hardy Boys. So many insane matches back in the day. Those first TLC matches were just things that people have never seen before on TV. Extreme matches, the things that they put their bodies through. It's actually a wonder that they're both working week in, week out. I think Matt's sort of a bit worse for wear than Jeff, but they are incredible, and they are my pick for the tag team.
Can't disagree. The fact that they're both still competing is a statement of itself, because some of their moments they should definitely have shortened careers. I was smirking kind of during that, because I had that thought as I was going through the tag team for who I'd pick. The Hardy Boys did cross my mind, but as I said before, I wanted to pick people who aren't currently wrestling. That also took out Edge and Christian, so my pick was the Dudley Boys. As far as I know, they're not active. I think they may have some independent work, but in terms of mainstream wrestling, they are not active at the minute, and like their table spot shenanigans in both ECW and WWE were always a highlight. And to this day, if they appear, you get the crowd chanting Devon, get the tables.
Yeah.
It's they have that legacy, and it is some of the best kind of early days wrestling, and they've done tremendous stuff for a long time. They keep coming back every so often, and you get some bits. But for me, they were probably the most entertaining stuff I've seen in tag divisions. A lot of tag team wrestlers, when they kind of split up, they have their own paths. But I feel like the Dudley Boys, their tag team work is kind of what they'll be remembered for.
Let's go to the non-wrestler pick that we've both picked.
Yeah, just
Now, my non-wrestling pick, I think you may have picked a celebrity or someone like that. I've picked someone that has given us great memories and moments throughout the year. Sort of accompanies moments, if you want. But probably a lot of people don't know who he is. And my pick is Jim Johnston. Now, Jim Johnston is, and was, I should say, the composer for WWE and wrote some of the theme songs that we've grown to know and love. Just a few of them: Stone Cold Steve Austin, Undertaker, Brock Lesnar. They're all songs that we know and that we'll probably never forget, and accompany moments that have gone down in history that we'll never forget. So my pick is Jim Johnston.
that is an excellent pick, and exactly why I wanted to have the non-wrestler category. My pick is a little bit controversial.
Oh dear, here we go.
I'm picking.
Don't be John Laurinaitis.
It's not John Laurinaitis. It might be more controversial. I am picking Vincent
Don't
Kennedy
be the anonymous
McMahon.
Raw. Oh, I thought you were going to say the anonymous Raw GM then.
No, I'm picking
The
Vince.
laptop.
I'm picking Vince McMahon, and
Okay.
the reason is because he will never. He won't acknowledge himself as a Hall of Fame pick for the WWE. At least we don't think he will. But we wouldn't have wrestling that we enjoy, at least me and Sam, without Vince McMahon. And although we're going to disagree on his more recent kind of decisions about things, for the simple fact of what he did to wrestling and what he has given us, whether it be WrestleMania or just kind of some of the individual moments feuding with like Stone Cold, everyone's going to have a moment of Vince McMahon that they kind of remember. And although I don't agree with everything he does, I feel like he's got to go in. Like for the first one, like just because of all of his accomplishments, I couldn't think of someone kind of more deserving as kind of an actual wrestling Hall of Fame than Vince McMahon for a non-wrestler.
I don't think anyone can argue with that at all, and for the simple fact that people our age, probably 99.9% of them that like wrestling, got into wrestling because of the WWE, and that was due to Vince McMahon. I don't think you can argue with that pick at all, so bravo.
it might be controversial to some, but I had to pick it.
Well, I'd argue that the people that it's controversial to probably all have neck beards, so let's move on to our headline picks. So I was thinking of a lot of people for my headline pick, and I didn't want to pick someone obvious. If I was going to go for someone obvious, I would have actually gone for John Cena. John Cena was my favourite wrestler as a child, early teens growing up. He's who I guess he was aimed at me. So that's who I would have picked. But I was thinking of someone who has transcended wrestling within the last year for non-wrestling reasons. When he was in wrestling, he was part of my favourite tag team growing up, actually. And that was Crime Time. So my headline pick is Shad Gaspar. I loved Crime Time when they were in WWE. I thought they were incredible. I thought they were really funny. That was something that I'd never seen before, and I remember when I was in primary school going around my friend Nathan's house and pretending to be Crime Time and wrestling each other and then doing stuff like that. They actually had a good program with John Cena. Obviously, within the last year, Shad has unfortunately passed away. He died, I guess, as a hero trying to save his son in the sea, and he did actually save his son, and unfortunately he passed away. So my headliner is Shad Gaspar.
That is a very worthy pick. Everything you've said there is you couldn't disagree with it. Like, his wrestling career was entertaining for the most part, and his stuff outside of wrestling is heroic. So there is few people who could disagree with that pick. Mine was not so enlightened pick. I sat down to think about it in the terms of who would you pick as the top stars of wrestling, and there were a number of names that you would have to throw out there. You had people like Hulk Hogan and Stone Cold, but they were before my time, and you have already mentioned my pick, so it's I am picking John Cena as the kind of headline pick for the Hall of Fame. He has been in WWE the entire time I have been a wrestling fan. I've always been a fan of Cena. Even when he was at his most hated, I was still a fan. And I don't think I would be a wrestling fan today if it wasn't for John Cena and the kind of stories he was involved in. There's a lot of bad ones. His kind of thing with the Nexus is not something to be revered, but everything kind of from his rap gimmick all the way up to his kind of story with The Rock, and even things like last year with The Fiend, have been incredibly entertaining and always a highlight. So it's the obvious answer, but I've got to pick John Cena.
I don't think anyone can argue with that. People might like the character or not, but you don't stay at the top of the game without being a star. So that's it. The headliners of the FigureFourcast Hall of Fame, John Cena and Shad Gaspar, two completely deserving picks for the Hall of Fame, and thus concludes the Hall of Fame ceremony in your best Howard Finkel voice, Damien.
No, I'm not. I'm not even going to attempt that impression. As I said at the beginning, we'd love to hear your thoughts on both our picks and who you would pick. If they're more personal picks, but maybe not as recognised, that would be great. But sometimes you've got to pick the really obvious ones. So we would like to hear from those as well. WWE do their Hall of Fame yearly, but maybe we should have a mini kind of edition every so often to kind of keep this as a thought, rather than waiting until next March and April to discuss it again. But it's been a fun little exercise for the last week or so, trying to think of deserving men and women for this Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it was fun. But let's get down to business. This weekend is another pay-per-view for WWE Fastlane, which means another predictions contest.
WWE predictions.
Currently, the scores are Sam, the figure of Dibley, the Fig Show, 2, Big Daddy Cross, 0. It sounds nice. It's got a nice ring to it.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, so before we start our predictions, we should probably announce our punishment. This time we're going to be taking part in Fast Pain. The theme for this is going to be a chili challenge. Now, the specifics have not been decided, because as a little added addition to this punishment, the winner will be deciding the specifics for the loser. But the agreed upon terms is that the loser will be required to eat something spicy and then record their reaction to it. This could be bad, depending on how mean we are to each other. If you have any ideas, by the time this podcast has gone live, it'll go live tomorrow before the pay-per-view, but when you're listening to this, you may already know which of us has lost. If you want to send some suggestions to the winner, that would be something you can do as well. I'm I'm optimistic for this one.
Yeah, so if you do want to send those suggestions to the winner, my Twitter handle is @SammyG, so send them in there. All right, thank you. Anyway, going into the predictions, let's jump right in. And I think the first match we should discuss is the Intercontinental Championship match. Big E, Apollo Crews. I'll start off with my prediction. I'm going to go that Big E is going to retain his title.
Okay, any particular reason why?
Don't have a particular reason.
No.
I just think Big E's going to
Okay,
win.
I think this is one that can go either way, but
I agree with that.
I've gone for Apollo.
Fantastic. We've already got a difference.
Yeah. So I think the storyline is going to continue, but I wouldn't. I mean, Big E could probably win it. I just think Apollo's potentially the more likely the winner there.
Great. So we've already got one difference. Let's move on to the women's tag team match. Nia and Shayna Baszler versus Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. Bit of deja vu. And it's what won me the last predictions. So I think you should start with your prediction for this match.
So I think last time I predicted that the challengers were going to win. To be honest, I think that could still happen, although there's less time in the story. And now I hope it doesn't happen. So I'm going to pick the champions to retain.
I actually have them to retain as well, so we've got the same pick there.
At least they can't cost me another punishment.
Has your leg hair grown back since then?
Partially.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so we've got the same pick for that. Let's go to Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus. I think this one's a pretty clear-cut one to me, and I'm pretty sure we're going to have the same predictions. Could be wrong, but I can only see Drew McIntyre winning, going into the main event of WrestleMania. So he's got to look strong. He's got to go over Sheamus. So my pick is Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, the way it's kind of the story's been set up, it makes the most sense. And I think Drew is going to soften up Sheamus, ready for my match against him. So Drew to win.
There it is. He's calling him out again. Let's get into a match that was made on SmackDown, or is at least announced on SmackDown. Shinsuke Nakamura versus Seth Rollins. It's obviously tying into the Cesaro story. I think because of that, for me, is leading into that match with Cesaro, that Seth Rollins is going to win and go on to WrestleMania to face Cesaro.
Yeah, it's Seth's first big match back as well. He needs the momentum more than Nakamura, unfortunately. Unless, of course, there's some shenanigans, Seth has got to win that one, I think.
Okay, so we got the same one on that as well. Another match that was announced yesterday, Matt Riddle versus Mustafa Ali for the United States Championship. I'm going for Mustafa Ali to win. I think if there's going to be any sort of credibility left for Retribution, he has to win.
Don't know what's going to happen in the match. I feel like it might be a pre-show one again. There's a lot of matches on the card. Because of that, I think there's going to be a continuation of the story. I don't think the title's going to change hands. I'm hoping that Riddle wins, but it's not a clean match, rather than Ali wins but doesn't get the title. So I'm going for Riddle. I think the story's going to carry on. It might be a little too soon for Riddle to lose the championship, but maybe we get a pre-show match at Mania where Ali wins. I do agree though that Retribution are on the edge of kind of the story, so hopefully they look good, but Ali doesn't win. That's kind of what I want to see from that.
Okay, so your pick is Matt Riddle.
Yeah, my pick is Matt Riddle.
Okay, we got another difference there.
Yeah.
Now we get into the interesting matches, the juicy ones where things are going to happen. So let's go for Alexa Bliss versus Randy Orton. Now, I don't think either of us think this match is just going to be a straight one-on-one match. I think what's best here is I think we both think there's going to be a no finish.
I think no finish is likely,
Okay.
but we can't put that as a prediction.
No. So this is what I think is going to happen. I think that they're going to tease that the match is going to start off. They might do a lock-up. Alexa Bliss and Randy Orton do a lock-up, and it looks like they're just going to have a straight match. And then,
Let me in.
comes on. Lights go down. And the Fiend is resurrected, and he hints of the Fiend every single week. but he appears at Fastlane to make Randy's knees weak. Then he comes back, and like you said earlier, I think he is going to have a different look, and specifically, I think he's going to have a different mask, a slightly different mask. I don't know what that mask is going to look like, but Fiend is absolutely going to return and attack Randy and lead into this match at WrestleMania. So that's my prediction.
Yeah. So when I was writing down a prediction for this, my kind of thought was, rather than who's going to get the victory, because I'm not expecting there to be a pinfall or submission, my kind of thought was, who's going to be standing tall at the end? Now, how we get to that, I don't know. But I have the kind of prediction that Alexa Bliss needs to come out as the victor of kind of the segment. Her and the Fiend needs to be the one standing tall, so that you can carry on that build to Mania. Whether she literally wins or not is up for debate. It could be a case of like Randy Orton like RKO's her and then the Fiend interferes, sort of thing. But I've gone for Alexa Bliss. I do feel like this is gonna be one of those matches that we're gonna have. Well, I think we picked the same. So I was worried that we're gonna have different picks and have to try and figure out who won. I don't think there's gonna be a clear-cut winner. Story winner has to be Alexa Bliss, and that's who I'm picking.
Okay, I think the Fiend's gonna sort of stand tall with Alexa, so I guess that's a similar kind of pick.
This is the will they won't they match. It was announced on Raw, then it was taken off of the website midweek, and then it was advertised again on SmackDown. I don't know as of right now if it's back on their website or not, but something's got to happen with that story at Fastlane. It's another one of, I'm not sure we might have to discuss who's going to be the actual winner. But for me, I picked Braun. Now, it would make more sense for Shane to be the winner and that Braun comes back for him at WrestleMania. But I'm not going for Braun to be the literal winner. I'm having it as a kind of Shane tries to avoid the match. So Braun wins, but he doesn't get his hands on Shane. And that's my prediction. I think it might be a case of Braun comes out to the ring and he's like waiting for Shane to come out. Shane just no-shows, just doesn't turn up. And in that case, in that situation, I think you've got to class Braun as the winner there. But I don't know if...
Okay.
That's kind of what my prediction is.
Interesting. Okay, so if there is a match between them, I'm going for Shane McMahon to win with assistance from Raw Underground legend Dabba Kato. And the match at WrestleMania being Dabba Kato and Shane McMahon versus Braun Strowman in a handicap match. That's if there's a match that happens. Now, if there's not a match that happens and there's just a segment, I think what's going to happen is, furthering the Braun being a dumb shit storyline, no one will have told Braun that there's a match, so he's just going to be running around backstage like the T-Rex that he is with a peanut brain going, Shane, where's Shane? I got a match with Shane, where is he? I'm going to rip his head off. And yeah, just running around like a T-Rex, maybe throw some goobers against some walls because he's angry, and that's what's going to happen if there's no match.
Okay, so your prediction though is Shane to win.
Yeah, if there's a match, Shane McMahon's winning.
So this might be one where we might have to put it to our listeners and our fans on who gets the point for this one, because there is a difference. So it's going to be a segment to watch closely, okay, to decide who should get the point for that one. Hopefully it doesn't come down to that. You've gone a little out there. Your prediction is that Shane and Dabba-Kato win. I feel like if there's no interference or no involvement of another person, you shouldn't get the point.
Well, no, fuck off. No, I'm just going Shane McMahon. And then I said what I think would happen, but no matter what happens, I think Shane McMahon's going to win.
Okay. Well, I think you've gone a little bit too fantasy booking in that match. That's the mistake I normally make, and I've tried to avoid it this time. So
okay.
that could come back to bite you in the arse, especially if I give you something really spicy. Ha 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 ha.
Right, let's go. What I presume is going to be the main event, the Universal title match. Daniel Bryan, Roman Reigns. I'm going Roman Reigns to win. I think there's going to be shenanigans. Don't know what the shenanigans are going to be, but I think Roman's going to win.
Yeah, I'm hoping there's shenanigans. I kind of want there to be a. This is going to sound terrible. I want there to be I'm not predicting it. I want there to be a non-finish. I feel like that's a way to get to the triple threat of Mania in a very WWE way. But I think the plan is still the one-on-one Edge versus Roman. So my prediction is also that Roman to win. But I'm hoping for the screwy finish to set up the triple threat. Yeah, prediction Roman Reigns.
I think we are going to get the triple threat, which differs from you. But yeah, we both pick Roman Reigns. So yeah, how many differences do we have?
So we've got 3. So the matches to look out for if you are interested in which of us is going to be suffering the punishment is the Big E versus Apollo match, the Braun versus Shane segment, and the Riddle versus Ali segment. Those are the 3 differences we have. So yeah, best out of 3. First to 2 points really, because the rest of the matches are all obviously the kind of the same results. Let's hope it goes well.
I do want you to do a third punishment, so yes, let's hope that it does go well for me. But we've run extremely long this week.
Yeah,
apologies for running so long.
It's been an hour and a half. It's been an hour and a half for us, but I don't know how long it will be. There's some segments to kind of cut down, like where we've been kind of trying to find information for you guys. So hopefully it won't be quite as long. But I did say at the beginning it was a packed show.
It certainly has been. They can call you many things, but they can't call you a liar, Damien. But another enjoyable show for us. Thank you for listening. Over to Damien for the socials.
Yeah, you can follow us on Twitter at FigureFourUK. We post occasional thoughts on wrestling as it happens over there, as well as being able to keep updated on like punishments and things like that. We have a Facebook page. You can find the FigureFourcast. That is a little bit less updated as Twitter, but there is content available on there as well. And for looking out for new punishment videos, as well as the previous 2, you can follow us on YouTube at the FigureFourcast. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoy Fastlane, and we look forward to recording our next episode for you.